Recording in progress.
Hello there, Hawkeye fans, and welcome to the for now the Rapid Reaction podcast. We're still taking nominations for new names for this podcast because the landscape of college football is sorry about that. The YouTube was in my ears. I was trying to talk. That was very distracting, but we're going to probably do a lot of these on Sunday mornings, noon Eastern time. It just works better. These games are late. I get home at 1:00 from Madison last night, so that would have been a little late for Jordan and Jovan to do a podcast last night. I am Rob Howe. If you're on the YouTube feed, you're seeing Jordan Canzeri on the lower part of your screen and Jovan Johnson on the top. Oh, all right. So your Hawkeyes are 6-1, 2-1, and Big Ten players at 3-1. 3-1. My bad. No, 2-1, right? 3-1. Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin lost to Penn State. So 3-1 in the Big Ten. I'll be okay, guys. As I said, a late night and was a good drive home, though, after Iowa wins 15-6. I think it was 1897 was the other time that Iowa won a football game by the score of 15-6. 1897, second time that's happened. So There's your little note and nugget for the day. Again, defense, special teams were the story. I'd like to start there, guys. We've talked about them a lot on this podcast last year in this, but Tory Taylor, that may have been his finest hour, Jovan. A couple parts to this question, couple tentacles here. What did you notice was his impact yesterday on that game? And then just overall as a coach, how do you have with a weapon like that, it kind of changes the way you coach, doesn't it?
I mean, can we vote Tory Taylor for MVP, for offensive MVP right now? I mean, because
Jay Higgins said yesterday that he rides on the defense's bus.
Oh, good to know. But I mean, Tory Taylor is a secret weapon for the Hawkeyes right now. The ability to kick the ball from in your own end zone and change the field dramatically, and pin teams inside the 20-yard line when you have the type of defense that they have. I mean, he's the secret sauce right now, and he's lived up to all the hype. I mean, I think he punted the ball 10 or 11 times yesterday, averaged over 50 yards a punt. I mean, that is a game changer to have a guy like him in your locker room. But, I mean, he was outstanding. Defense was outstanding. And, I mean, when you win them ugly, and that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Jordan, same questions to you. As a coach, I know it kind of can, in your mind, it's changing how you're calling plays probably because you know that you can flip the field and get more advantageous field position on offense. 10 punts, 50.6 yard average, 6 punts inside the opponent's 20. Wisconsin's average starting field position in the second half, JC, the 13-yard line, their own 13-yard line.
Yeah. I mean, it again, Jovan said it makes a huge difference where, even when he's punting out of his own end zone, and as an offensive coordinator, you're preparing your next play call, and you're like, okay, yeah, so we should have the ball around the 50-yard line, and so we should be able to call this. But when he's still getting it down to the 30, it's just making huge differences. And then again, for an offensive coordinator to be starting at average 13-yard line, that's just, again, it does limit your play calling. So it's just, again, a testament to what he can do. And it obviously just shows that he is as Jovan said, just a secret weapon.
Yeah, I think the secret's going to be out now moving forward after yesterday's performance, if it wasn't beforehand. And, I thought special teams were good overall. A couple penalties that were kind of, a little wonky. But Drew Stevens bounced back after a tough week the week before against Purdue, where he was a little bit off, but a couple nice field goals yesterday. Kickoffs were solid. I know, Jovan, the defense gets a lot of credit, and it should, but how important of a component when you consider where Iowa's offense right now is the special teams?
I mean, the special teams, obviously in football, you want to be able to play well in all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams. But I mean, special teams right now for the Hawkeyes, given the state of where the offense is and how they're operating, I think the special teams is playing a major role in the defense's success, because changing the field position, the hidden yardage that people don't know much about, that plays into the defense's hands. Because if you're starting at your own 13 against the Iowa defense, the percentages of you scoring points are way low. So, I mean, the special teams has been doing a hell of a job of keeping teams bottled up and backed up in their own part of the field. And the defense, I'm sure Phil Parker and company is loving that. And the offense, as you know, gives them time to try to get moving and get operating and doing things the right way. So right now, the special teams probably deserves a lot more credit than they're getting.
Yeah, Jordan, it's funny. I'll shoot photos from the end of the field where Torrey's punting towards. So I'm like sometimes like right parallel with the punt returner. And you guys know how this works with the punt, the special teams coach for Wisconsin yesterday. I'm watching him and he's telling the punt returner to move up. And I'm going, what? Is he not scouted Iowa before? So it's funny because a lot of the punt returners, you'll notice, they're catching the ball running back or they can't even get to it. So, just your thoughts on the impact of special teams here. I think people have a better understanding on defense, that they kind of can see when things are going well on defense. But as Jovan talked about, there's some hidden yardage. There's stuff that Iowa's doing on special teams right now that I think may go by the average fan's radar.
Yeah, I mean, you can call Torrey Taylor the eraser. Like, it doesn't matter how off we are on offense when you got a guy who can just change the field regardless. So if we get stopped inside our own 20, it's just the same as if we moved the ball down the field and then got stopped on, the opponent's 30, because we got a guy who can consistently change the field. And then again, just put the defense in a better position. If you didn't have that type of guy and, kicking out of their own end zone and they're getting it to like your own 45, then again, that puts the defense in a bind where even if you get a few stops, they could still legitimately be in field goal range. So it's just a huge component to the game when you got a guy like him. And so you can just call him the offensive mishap eraser or something, because it just does not matter, but he can make a huge difference.
Jordan, a couple guys I want to talk about from yesterday. Jay Higgins, Jovan and I were talking about this before we started recording. He is second in the country at 12.4 tackles per game. He had 13 yesterday, but we kind of expect that from him. It looks like Sebastian Castro might be one of those guys that's emerging. This cash position that Iowa's created started with Amani Hooker, went to Dane Belton, and now it's gone to Sebastian Castro. What did you think his impact was yesterday? And shout out to Cooper DeJean too on that first drive when they stopped them on fourth down and he came off the left side and stopped Braylon Allen for a lost yardage. That was a huge play too, I thought. But what are you seeing from Jordan or from Sebastian Castro, Jordan, that lets you know that he's kind of one of those emerging playmakers on this defense?
I mean, you got to just really think that one, is it that we are good with finding these type of players that may not be as prestigious and stars and getting the Alabamas and certain things in those competitions, but these kids that are just continually playing. And you see, even in the NFL, Amani Hooker, Belton, like they make impacts, they make differences. Geno Stone, even in with the Ravens, like it's, Phil Parker, he's we've said it and I've said he's a defensive guru, but Castro just all over the field, making crazy big stops. Higgins all over the field. I mean, again, averaging that 12 and a half tackles is insane. And then again, just the fact that every single game we're forcing turnovers. So it's special teams is, again, assisting the offense. But then again, when you have a defense that can hold teams to a certain point average, but then also give you the ball back, we have to execute on it.
Yeah, Wisconsin came in, I think Jovan ranked 16th in the country in rushing offense, about 210 a game. They finished with under 100 yesterday, rushing the football. That's key. Run the ball, stop the run. How long have we, that's Iowa football. That's how the Hawkeyes are built. I'm going to let you have the floor, Jovan, on Phil Parker, because, we saw last year how good that defense was. And then you lose Riley Moss and you lose Kayvon Merriweather and some guy named Jack Campbell and Seth Benson and John Wagner and Lucas Van Ness. I mean, these are NFL guys, and we saw some hiccups early in the season. I think there were some growing pains with this defense, but it seems like it's ascending. What is it about Phil? He was the secondary coach when you were here. You got the benefit of being around both Parkers. How much do you think he gets from Norm, and how much has he kind of modernized what Norm was doing?
Yeah, before I talk about Phil, because I could talk about him forever, let me just say in regards to my boy Sebastian Castro, a lot of people don't understand the difficulty of playing the position that he plays for the Iowa defense, because as a nickel Sam, which is what that position is called, or cash, whatever you want to call it, you have to serve two masters, which means he has to play the run and he has to play the pass. And that in itself is extremely difficult. So you have to give him tons and tons and tons of credit, because I seen a play in a game where he was down in the box and they ran like a RPO play where the tight end leaked to the flat, and he had to play the run and then react to the pass. And he made the tackle for, I think it was like a 1 yard gain. And that might go over a lot of people's head, but that is an outstanding play from a guy that had to do both jobs on one play. So that position is extremely hard to play, and he's doing a fantastic job at what he's doing. But in regards to Phil Parker, I mean, when I was at Iowa, he was just a DB coach. Norm was our DC, but I think he's taken what Norm was doing for the defense and like you said, modernized it with implementing that cash position, because of the amount of teams that run spread offenses nowadays. That cash position plays a vital part in how the defense works. That's why you're starting to see guys like Geno Stone and Amani Hooker and Dane Belton and these type of players come down. They're safeties playing in the box. They're like Bob Sanders playing in the box down in that position, in that role. But they have the ability to be factors in the run game and be great tacklers, and then also play the pass. And Phil is taking that and evolved it into a modernized defense for spread offenses. But one thing about Phil is he's going to be tough, and that defense is going to be a mirror image of what he brings to the table. They're going to have outstanding effort. They're going to be fundamentally sound, and they're going to fly around, and they're going to force you to take the short throws, and they're going to come down and they're going to tackle, and they're going to tackle, and they're going to tackle, and they don't really miss tackles at all. And that's just a testament of coaching. They practice it all the time. They do the things that they do on game day. They do it in practice throughout the week, all week. So you know what you're going to get from a Phil Parker led defense. Those guys are going to be great with effort. They're going to have outstanding toughness, and they're going to tackle well, and they're not going to give up the big play. So that's why they've been successful throughout the years, because they just keep building and building. No matter who you put in there in those roles, they're going to keep having success because they're going to be well coached and they're going to get the most out of every player on the field.
Yeah, it seems like, and I know this is pretty common, offenses have scripted plays, and they'll, some of their biggest successes are early in the game when they can move the ball. We saw that from Wisconsin yesterday. Moved the ball, drove the field down drove the ball down the field in its first drive. It seems like Phil Jovan has that ability to make adjustments after he sees kind of what a team's going to do. Where does that come from? Kind of what is in his mind that's able to say, okay, here's what we need to do to counteract what this team is trying to do against us. And he does it quickly, so early in games.
Yeah, he'll get guys to the sideline. I mean, if there's something that's hurting the defense early, he'll get guys to the sidelines and get it corrected almost immediately, because he understands the game at a high level. So if you're coming out and you're scripting plays to beat what they do on defense, then they're going to make adjustments to make sure that those things don't end up in big plays, and they're going to keep you bottled up. So he does a phenomenal job of just being able to adjust. One thing about the profession of coaching and playing the game is that you have to be able to make adjustments. If you can't make adjustments, then you're setting your team up for failure, because teams are going to attack what you're willing to give up. And Phil's not willing to give up much. So he's going to keep making you have to adjust. And then offenses, once they script their plays that work for them, then they tend to come back to those plays. And then once you see it again, you know that it's coming. And that's what Phil does a great job of, is having the guys prepared, film study and things like that. They can tell you when the offense lines up what 1, 2, 3 plays that they have out of those formations that they know that they're anticipating. So they're allowed to play a lot faster when that comes.
Jordan, is there a way to attack this Iowa defense and be successful?
Barely, when you got a guy like him. Like I think I've said this story before, but it's just embedded in my brain, and I use it so many times when I'm talking to my DBs now at the school. And it's just Indiana 2015. I was on the sideline since I was still coming back from my high ankle sprain, but I was standing right next to Coach Parker, and they just broke the huddle. They get to their set. Quarterback doesn't even say down, and Coach Parker's just screaming, "Desmond, watch the wheel. Desmond, it's the wheel. It's the wheel." Snapped. QB looks. They ran the wheel. Desmond was right underneath it, and I think that was when he got his 9th interception or something. And I was like, again, like when you have coaches that are just that good, it's hard to go against. It's just, he's a person who lives and breathes football, but he's also just so technically sound, but creative and smart. And then again, to see the amount of players that just continually leave the program successful, it only points to one person.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think there needs to be, this is not my original idea, but why isn't there an NIL deal for Sebastian Castro playing the cash? There's got to be some bank or something, or some money institution that could give that kid a NIL deal. So if you're listening to this, do that for your business.
Oh, yeah.
Jordan, we'll talk about, we're going to go into the offense now, but I want to start on a positive note with the offense, and that's running the football. And Iowa's done that really well the last 2 weeks. We saw last week Caleb Johnson rip off a big one. Yesterday, Le'Shawn Williams runs off a big one. What are you seeing with the running game that's starting to click right now?
I mean, you do at least have 2 ball carriers that are capable of making big plays happen. I mean, you see it with Williams yesterday. I won't deny that when I saw that DB chasing him, I was like, oh. But hey, again, he is a strong runner, stiff armed him, still made it in the end zone. I mean, it's just, and then you got Johnson. It's just you got two playmakers, and that's what you got to be excited to have that. But again, there was just still times where certain scenarios where I would have thought that you want to kind of trust the ball in their hands on certain short yardage plays and different things like that. But it's easier to watch from the sideline. But again, it's running the ball was better. But if you subtract that one big play, it's again where has it been consistently. So, again, you got to be excited for it. Having a long touchdown and a win is a win, but still we got to click more on offense, especially with what special teams and defense provides.
What are you seeing with the running game, Jovan? Improvement on the offensive line at all?
I mean, I think they're starting to get some traction. I think, when you have those two workhorses of running backs in the backfield, you can't never go wrong because they run hard. They're downhill runners. They can run through arm tackles, and they're going to make you be physical. So I think the offensively, the run game is doing well. And like Jordan said, if you take away, that touchdown run, I think it looks a little different. But at the end of the day, they still had good production in the run game. And then we got to figure out how to get the other parts of the team going on offense, because right now, if you are not able to run the ball, teams are going to start stacking the box and make you have to beat them throwing the football. And I think a couple times there was some good runs versus a stacked box, but when you put 2 and 3 tight ends on the field, it makes it a little bit harder to stack the box and have your corners have to tackle. So it's a very interesting offense, and at times it kind of gets boring to watch. But I mean, that's when you have a defense like that and special teams unit like that, they can live with being boring, and it's not to everybody's liking.
Yeah, Jovan, it's it's knowing who you are, right? Iowa knows who it is. It knows that this offense, most likely this year with a backup quarterback, down your top 2 tight ends now, probably with Eric All yesterday. Feel horrible for that kid. Hopefully it's not as bad as it looked. But what can they do here to get to generate some? Deacon Hill right now, the last 2 games is 12 for 35 for under 150 yards, and Iowa won both of those games. What, Jovan, can they do to kind of get something going in the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to this a few weeks back. I think you have to create the matchups that you want, by stacking receivers, motioning guys, whether you are snapping the ball and sending a guy behind the line of scrimmage out to the front side flat, just different ways of getting the ball to the receivers, I think is going to help. But right now, I think the passing game is not catered to their success. You can't always try to throw the ball down the field, no matter how good your receivers are. You gotta create matchups, and I don't think they're doing a good job of creating matchups right now in the passing game.
Jordan, same question to you. 6 completions in each of the last 2 games. That's how we got to 12 total completions. So, you can say there's consistency at least.
Yeah, again, like we got to do something to create the matchups. And again, just certain calls and certain scenarios. If we're running the ball a little bit, then on short, let's just try to ride it out and trust it again. But to have play actions and pops from that, again, we know who we are, but we do, if we truly want to be able to effectively go against who I think right now. Obviously, we got the West in our hands, but we would probably face another Michigan. And if we face Michigan, you know, as well as the defense can play, we got to put up 21 plus on them. And that's so whatever it is, we gotta figure it out, gotta find it.
So what do you do at this point? You've got, 5 games left. Do you just incrementally try to install things and figure out what is working? Because in fairness, you switch to quarterback halfway through the season. That's a pretty big change. And the first quarterback wasn't healthy the whole time either. So that kind of impacted things. But you just try, because you can continue to, I think, lean on this defense and special teams with the schedule that Iowa has. It's not facing Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State moving forward. It can probably lean on those on the defense, but you're building towards that Big Ten championship game and having to face one of those big teams. What do you do between now and then to try to get yourself ready for that?
Well, at least tight end wise, just got to get these younger guys just more reps, figuring out again how to get the ball in our Caleb Johnson and Williams' hands. We just got to figure out again just creative ways where we won't be able to just do the traditional run basic play action against a team as talented as Michigan if we want to be able to beat them. But then again, it's just knowing what we're able to do defensively and special teams wise. It at least gives you a little more comfort rolling into the potential. But again, it's just, we have to just create creative ways. If it's even putting LaShawn Williams in the backfield while Caleb Johnson's in a slot or something, and as a receiver, I don't know what it is, and I mean, just saying, I wouldn't mind also seeing my man Cooper on the other side of the ball because he's a talent too. So, that would be nice to see.
Jovan, they got to do it, right? At this point, I know Kirk, it goes against every fiber of his being to do that. But I think the old man's got to loosen up a little bit and let the kid play.
Man, I'm telling you, I think George was reading my mind for what he just said. But, I mean, at this point, he's the best punt returner, the best defensive player. You might as well put him on offense to see if he could be your best offensive weapon. At this point, I think he's talented enough to play in the slot. You can run, even if you use Caleb Johnson and LaShawn Williams together and you put one of them in the slot, run some jet motions and still run and implement your same run scheme. Just the threat of you giving them the ball on a jet sweep with those guys of that caliber, they can make one guy miss in space. And if their teams aren't going to respect it, then give them the ball in a jet sweep and make them have to make a play. But when you have the threat of guys like those guys that we mentioned, you can do so many different things with those guys. Using those two backs at the same time on the field gives you a completely different look from what Iowa's been doing over the last however many weeks. So you have the ability to just do some and run some RPOs. Teams are going to stack the box against you. So you have the ability to run some RPOs where quarterback's reading it. If he gets a good look, he can pull and throw. And that gives the receivers a little bit of a better advantage in the pass game because now the DBs have to react to the run. And then you're still running throws off of the run plays. So, it's just some things that you can implement that right now I'm not seeing in the Iowa offense.
Ian Cooper, for those that don't know, was a very successful high school quarterback. He can throw it a little bit. You could probably run some wildcat with him, like Jovan's saying, the RPO stuff would work. I think you could get creative there, but I sense that the path forward, at least in the head coach's mind, who's won a shitload of games in his career, he's going to play conservatively on offense until he has to put the foot on the gas. He's going to do what he did yesterday, play the field position game, use the secret weapon in Tory Taylor, and not let his offense screw this up But hopefully, my hope is as we get through the rest of this season, he sees stuff in practice with this offense that gives him more confidence to let them maybe attack a little bit more. But we'll see how that goes. Jovan, where in the pantheon of rivalries when you are at Iowa was Minnesota? What was Floyd to you and your teammates, and what are some of your memories of this rivalry?
Oh man, I hated Minnesota. I mean, all of the teams that were rivalries to us, I hated. I hated Wisconsin, hated Minnesota, hated Iowa State. You know, all the teams that we played for anything, I hated them all. So Minnesota's right up there with the rest of them. I put them all in the bucket of you know what. But at the end of the day, it was one of those games that you always wanted to go just kick the hell out of them. And I mean, we did throughout my years a pretty good job of doing just that to most of those teams. So, but yeah, Minnesota is one of the ones that you just don't like, and you know, they haven't had the best years of late, but you know, they can beat you on any given Saturday.
Yeah, Jordan, they're coming off a bye week, so I don't know. That could be good, could be bad. You never know. It could go either way with them, though.
Mhm.
But Floyd's the coolest trophy you guys play for, right?
I mean, they're all pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, for some reason, I don't know why.
Have you guys lifted that thing?
Yeah, that sucker's heavy.
That trophy's heavy as hell.
that thing is heavy. But yeah, it's again, it's just everyone means something, but the Floyd of Rosedale, that's definitely, it's one that I mean, every single one of them comes with some fun memories, but won it there, won it at home, and it's just nice we got to just keep it in our trophy case. All that matters.
I hope so. That's a 2:30, I believe, on Saturday. Gophers come to Kinnick Stadium before the bye week, which, as Kirk likes to, he has like a compartmentalized mind. He was talking to us yesterday about this being the end of the first season when they play before the bye, and that's kind of that's typical Kirk. That's kind of the way he's wired. But Iowa should be favored in this one. I have not seen a line yet, but we will be back next week to talk about it here on the Rapid Reaction Podcast, most likely again on Sunday morning, early afternoon. But if we can squeeze it into our next Saturday after the game, we will do that as well. But want to thank Jovan and Jordan for coming on the podcast and adding their expert analysis of what they saw yesterday and what they're seeing with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Need to get an ad read in here before we get out. Support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their service and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. Thank you to Systems Unlimited and all of our sponsors. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll be back